Good morning and welcome to another episode with Just a School Past the Bell. Just a quick reminder, if you're enjoying this channel, if you're enjoying the episodes, please hit the like button, subscribe, so you can just continue getting this content. But today we're going to continue with our series of Bible characters. And today we're going to start with it was a very interesting character, a very difficult character to tell you a story about. Well, today we're going to talk about Isaac. And now if you read through the life of Isaac, there's not a lot to read about him. And I want to draw many parallels of his life with that of the parable of the faithful servant. So let's start with the parable. This parable comes where Jesus is busy teaching the people, and he's teaching them, and he says the story about there was this master and he had these three servants, and he each gave them a portion of his estate, his wealth, and he goes away and each one does something with that money. And so the first one, who received the most, he goes to the market and he's interacting with the life processes, with the market life, and it's a risk. He could lose his money, but the risk pays off and he doubles what he had. And the other guy, who had half of that, he does a similar thing. He works with what he was given and he doubles it as well. And then the last guy, he only gets one portion, and now he's terrified, he's scared. He's like, if I lose this, oh man, the master's not going to be happy with me, so I'll just protect it. I'm going to dig a hole, I'm going to bury it. When he comes back, I'll fetch it, and then I'll give it to him, just as he gave it to me. Just look after it, return it the same way you received it. But that backfired. And so when the master returns, this parable gets this tongue lashing. He's in trouble because if he went to the bank, at least interest. But he did nothing with what he was given. And in our lives, that's a very powerful lesson. You need to do something with this life you've been given. If you've woken up this morning, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do with this day that the Lord has given you? Anyway, and so he gets in trouble and all that. But now, how does this relate to someone like Isaac? Well, with Isaac, it's a very strange, if you read over the Bible, you see there's not a lot given about him. But what's interesting for me is that he was always faithful. I mean, he wasn't perfect. There's a time he lied about his wife, same as his dad. Family trait that, but overall, he doesn't do a lot wrong. He's very faithful. And then I'll tell you a story about, it wasn't that he was just faithful and did nothing. Very similar to the first person in the parable. He worked with what he had, and he was abundantly blessed for it. But we start off the story. Abraham has to offer up his son Isaac. Famous story in the Bible. They go off to the mountain together. There's no donkey, there's no animal for them to sacrifice, and now they're getting closer to this mountain, and then Isaac's now panicking and he's saying, Dad, where is the offering? We need the offering. And that's the only time you hear Isaac speak in that story. And I found that fascinating, because what that means is that he doesn't throw a fit. He doesn't throw a tantrum. He doesn't rebel. It's an option. He could run. He could run. They didn't have to catch him. He walked with his father, and then he was bound and laid on the altar, and you can just imagine the tears, you can just imagine that emotion. Must have been quite an ordeal, but then God provided, as Abraham kept telling his son he would. What a powerful lesson of God's provision there. Now we move on a couple of years, and now he's looking for a wife. Well, his father's looking for a wife for him. And he submits to the process. He allows the servant, Abraham's servant, to select his wife. At least they did a good job. And the Bible says she was a very beautiful woman. And it was all part of God's plan. But the point I'm making is that Isaac again was submissive to the process, and he didn't feel he was robbed of living his own life. And that's a very important lesson. Sometimes in life we feel like if I'm not making the decisions, I'm not living. And that's not always true. Oftentimes in our lives we go through these patches where it's all mundane, it's all the normal routine, the 9 to 5, I wake up, I go to work, I come back, I wake up, I go to work, I do it again. For kids, it's normally I wake up, I go to school, I come back, do my homework, and the routine, you often feel like I'm not really living the life I want to. But there's a blessing in hard work, and that's what we're going to see in Isaac's life, because then now later, Isaac's now in charge, Abraham dies, it's now everything's on Isaac, and Isaac wanders around and he goes place to place, he's just doing his thing, and then he's at this place, and the Bible says, so what he does is he's allowed to plant his fields outside of the city, the civilization, and he does so, and he was always working, and he received 100-fold. That means 100 times of what he planted. So if he planted, let's say, 100 rows of corn or wheat, he received 10,000 for that. I mean, it's incredible to see how he was blessed. And then he would move and dig out wells to feed his flocks. And then they weren't happy with where he did that, and he would just move around. He would just submit to the process, but he would always continue trying again. And in life, this is something I want you guys to grab a hold of, something I want you guys to see, is that in life, sometimes things aren't easy, and you go through these patches where it's tough. You try the right thing, and then you get knocked down, and you're like, oh, why should I try? But if you keep on trying, if you keep on persevering, the way Isaac did, the way he was chased away from well after well after well, but he persevered. He kept going. And if we continue, the Bible says, continue in well doing. Do not give up, for in due season you will reap the reward. And that's what it's about. God's encouraging you. He's saying, continue, my son, continue, my daughter. I know the plans I have. Keep going. I know it's tough now, but keep going. I have great plans for you. And so Isaac keeps going, and then eventually they leave him alone. They're like, okay, cool, you can have this one. And so throughout his life, we just see this. It's almost like there's no big events in his life, and that's okay, because God blessed him, and he is one of the patriarchs of the Bible. We say it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he's one of these foundational members, and we see an example of consistent, faithful, hard work. No glitz, no glamour. It's not all these big famous stories of him running to save people like Abraham. It's a story of Isaac being given what his father had and just being faithful to work hard with that, to go place to place, to not give up. And the Bible speaks of a time where God just reassures Isaac of, you're on the right track. And I believe that's what God's wanting to tell you guys today. When it's difficult and you guys are doing the right thing, continue. Don't give up. God knows what you're going through. He wants to bless you, and He has this huge plan for your life. God's ways are higher than our ways. And I pray that you take this and remind yourself, hard work is good. When you get tired, encourage yourself. God will bless the faithful. Be faithful, good servant of the Lord. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to give a like, subscribe, See you guys next week.